I had been hiking in the mountains for hours, my legs aching and my water bottle nearly empty. The dense canopy above allowed only slivers of sunlight to filter through, casting long shadows on the rocky path ahead. The sound of my boots crunching against the dirt and the occasional rustling of leaves were the only noises in the quiet wilderness. That's when I first saw it, a tiny white tiger cub, no bigger than a small dog, standing on the trail ahead of me. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. A white tiger? Here? That didn't make any sense. My breath hitched as I took in its delicate frame, its fur impossibly bright against the earth-toned surroundings. Its ears flicked and its bright blue eyes locked onto mine, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Was it fear? Hope? A silent plea? The cub let out a soft, desperate cry, an almost pitiful sound that went straight to my heart. Before I knew it, my feet moved on their own, stepping toward it. The instant I did, the cub turned and bolted into the trees. My pulse quickened. Was it running from me or was it leading me somewhere? It paused just a few feet ahead, glancing back at me as if checking to see if I was following. My gut twisted. It wanted me to come. I hesitated for only a moment before pushing forward, ducking under low-hanging branches and stepping over gnarled roots. The uneven ground made my steps unsteady, but I refused to slow down. Something about the way the cub moved, its urgency, told me this was important. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I chased after it, deeper into the wilderness. After several minutes of scrambling through thick underbrush, I stumbled into a small clearing, and that's when I saw her. A full-grown white tigress lay on her side, her body rising and falling in labored breaths. Her beautiful fur was stained with blood, a deep wound slashed across her shoulder. My breath caught in my throat. She was hurt, badly. The cub sprinted to her, nudging its small head against her massive one, letting out tiny, heartbreaking cries. The mother blinked weakly, her golden eyes dull with pain. She barely moved. I crouched down, trying to assess the situation without scaring them. My instincts screamed at me to turn around, to leave before I got too close. This was nature's way, wasn't it? The strong survived, and the weak. But I couldn't walk away. The cub had sought me out for help. It had trusted me. And I couldn't let it down. I pulled off my backpack and took out my first aid kit. My hands trembled as I unzipped the bag, pulling out antiseptic wipes and gauze. I had no idea if this would work, but I had to try. My heart pounded as I took a deep breath and steadied myself. Moving slowly, I crept forward, making sure my movements were deliberate and non-threatening. The mother tiger watched me, her golden eyes filled with pain, but also an eerie sense of understanding. She didn't growl, she didn't move to attack, she just let me come closer. Her heavy breathing filled the silence between us, each exhale a reminder of her suffering. The cub sat beside her, its small body pressed against hers as if trying to shield her from further harm. I hesitated for a moment, then reached out, dabbing at the wound with a disinfectant-soaked cloth. She flinched slightly but didn't pull away. I whispered softly, my voice barely above a breath, hoping to soothe her. "You're strong. You'll be okay." The cub watched me intently, as if measuring my every move, its little ears twitching at the sound of my voice. I carefully wrapped the wound with gauze, securing it as best as I could. My fingers brushed against her soft fur, feeling the warmth of her body, the rise and fall of her labored breathing. I wasn't sure if what I had done would be enough, but at least I had tried. The cub stayed right beside me, watching every move. When I finished, I sat back, exhaling. There wasn't much else I could do. If she didn't get up soon, she wouldn't make it. The cub seemed to understand that too, because it let out a long, sorrowful sound and curled up beside her. For the next few hours, I stayed. I didn't know why, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. I watched the mother's breathing, hoping it would get stronger. I stroked the cub's fur, feeling its tiny heartbeat against my palm. I whispered to them, telling them stories about my life, about how I had always felt lost, never really belonging anywhere. And maybe that's why I was here now, because in some strange way I belonged with them in this moment. The sun had started to set when I saw the tigress shift slightly. Then, slowly, she raised her head. My heart jumped. She was still weak, but she was fighting. She let out a deep, rumbling sound, and the cub responded with an excited chirp. They nuzzled each other, and for the first time that day I let myself smile. It was time for me to go. I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting so long. The mother tiger looked at me, and for a brief second, I swore I saw gratitude in her eyes. Then she turned to her cub, gently nudging it as if to tell it to stay close. I took a step back, then another, giving them space. The cub watched me go, its small face filled with something I couldn't quite explain. Maybe sadness, maybe thanks, maybe both. As I walked away, I knew I would never forget them. And somehow, I felt like they wouldn't forget me either.